I'll never forget that week on Route 66. It was a few years ago. I was 34 and just coming off a tough run. I was eager to get home to Santa Monica and see my family. Driving alone for days was exhausting, but I loved my truck. I felt safe inside it. Little did I know, I was about to face something I couldn't explain. The first night was quiet. I drove through small towns and looked at the dark stretches of highway. I turned up the radio, hoping for some tunes. Suddenly, the music turned to static. I thought it was just a bad signal. Then I heard a woman's voice. It was faint but clear, asking for help. It sent a chill through me, but I brushed it off as interference. As the nights went on, I started seeing strange things on the side of the road. Run-down attractions I couldn't remember. One night, I saw a rusty signpost that looked old and forgotten. I felt uneasy but didn't stop. I could barely keep my eyes open. I was exhausted. By the next night, that voice came back on the radio, begging for help again. It haunted me. I turned the knob, but it was always there, echoing in my head. My heart raced. Shadows on the side of the road began to look like something was watching. Once, I swore I saw something move. I glanced, and there was nothing, but the feeling wouldn't leave me. I pulled into a diner one night, hoping a cup of coffee would clear my mind. The place was old and worn down. A few truckers were inside. I asked the waitress if she ever heard about strange stuff happening on Route 66. She gave me a look, like I was insane. Then she said others had mentioned things too. That freaked me out. Was I losing my mind, or was there something more to it? When I got back in my truck, the feeling of being followed hit me hard. I drove on, the voice still echoing in my mind. I was almost home, but dread weighed heavy on me. I couldn't stop glancing in the rearview mirror, expecting to see something lurking behind. As I turned into my neighborhood, the voice returned, clearer than before. It felt like it was right next to me. "Help me," it whispered. My heart pounded. I turned my head quickly, but I was alone. My breath came fast as I sat there, frozen. The night was too quiet. I didn't know what to do. That feeling of dread surrounded me. The empty street felt filled with shadows. The last thing I remember was thinking I should never have left the road. I wanted to get out, to run, but my body felt stuck. Where was that voice coming from? What did it want? It turned my drive home into a nightmare. That memory lingers, and I still question what happened that night on Route 66. Was it all in my head, or was there something else out there? I can't shake the feeling that I haven't heard the last of her cry. The next day, I tried to get back to normal. After all the strange things, I needed to focus on work and my family. But that voice kept playing in my mind, twisting everything. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever happened that night was far from over. I met up with a couple of friends at a local bar that evening. They were having a good time, but I couldn't connect. I kept glancing at my phone, thinking about that voice. One of my friends noticed. "You good, man?" he asked, concern in his eyes. I smiled and shrugged it off, but deep down, I felt something wasn't right. The bar was packed, laughter and chatter surrounding me, but there was a weight on my chest. I excused myself and stepped outside for some fresh air. As I leaned against the cool metal railing, I caught sight of my truck parked across the street. My heart skipped a beat. I could have sworn I saw a figure near it. I squinted into the dim light. Nothing. Just shadows playing tricks. I shook it off, telling myself my mind was messing with me. But I couldn't help feeling the chill creep down my spine. I went back inside to join my friends, trying to return to the moment. Later that night, I drove home with the windows down, hoping the breeze would clear my head. But as I turned down my street, it happened again. That voice. It was softer now, like a whisper against my ear. "Help me." My pulse shot up, and I glanced in the rearview mirror, expecting to see someone sitting in the back seat. But again, I was alone. The shadows outside seemed deeper that night, pressing in on me as I parked. I sat for a moment, breathless, staring at my house. The voice was vivid in my mind, and fear gnawed at me. Should I step inside? What if whatever had followed me home lay in wait? Before I could talk myself out of it, I grabbed my phone and snapped a picture of the rearview mirror as a memento. Maybe this would remind me of what I felt or saw, just in case. I took a deep breath, opened the truck door, and stepped outside. The air around me felt heavy, almost electric. I walked toward the front door, my hands shaking. Just as I reached for the handle, I heard it clear as day. Please. This time, it was louder, more desperate. The sound made me freeze in my tracks. That voice wasn't coming from my truck. I instinctively looked around. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but the hair on my arms stood up. Range and coldness filled the air. I hesitated for a heartbeat, feeling the urge to run away, but something compelled me to face this unknown fear. Then, I heard a faint rustling from the side of the house. My heart raced as I turned slowly, trying to steady my breath. That's when I saw it, something pale darting through the shadows. My legs moved before I knew what was happening, driving me toward the sound. What was out there? And how was that voice connected to it? As I stepped closer, the soft whisper came again, mingling with the rustle of leaves. The night was thick with suspense. I was about to uncover something I never anticipated, and I could feel it in my bones. I crept toward the side of the house, straining to hear any sign of movement beyond the rustling leaves. The moonlight barely pierced through the trees, casting long shadows that danced around me, and the whisper echoed in my mind like a song stuck on repeat. Help me. The urgency nagged at me. I reached the corner of the house, my pulse quickened. Whatever that pale figure was, it was close. Just beyond the hedges, I could see a shape moving. My breath hitched in my throat. Was it a person? Hello? I called out, trying to keep my voice steady, though it trembled. There was silence, then a faint rustle again. I crouched low, peering closer. That's when I saw it, a small girl, no more than 6 or 7, crouched in the shadows with wide, terrified eyes. My heart sank. Are you okay? I asked, kneeling down to her level. The immediate fear that washed over me was mixed with disbelief. What was she doing here at this hour? Her clothes were ragged and dirt-streaked, and she looked like she had been here for days. Please, she whispered again, her voice barely more than a breath. Help me. Where are your parents? I asked, glancing around in panic. Was this a joke? Was she a figment of my imagination? But her gaze held a kind of sincerity that made my skin prickle. I can't go home, she replied, her voice shaking. They won't let me. My mind raced with questions. Who was she? What did she mean? What do you mean? I probed, desperate to understand. I'm scared. Please, she said again, moving a fraction closer, her eyes pleading with mine. I felt the weight of the situation. I had to stop my mind from spiraling. Okay, I'll help you. Just tell me where we can go, I stammered, trying to project courage I didn't feel. But before she could respond, her eyes grew wide as she turned to look behind me. I felt an icy tendril of fear crawl up my spine. I shifted slowly, trying to remain calm. The shadows had deepened, almost alive. My phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking the tension. I pulled it out, and the screen was glowing with a message: you shouldn't have followed her. Panic surged through me. What? Who are you? I shouted into the darkness, clutching the phone like a lifeline. The little girl shrank back, and my heart broken for her. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice trembling. They're coming. Before I could comprehend what was happening, the shadows twisted around us, almost taking shape. A cold wind whipped through the clearing, making the trees sway unnaturally. Something was coming, something that made the very air feel thick and suffocating. Just as darkness enveloped us, I heard another voice, this one booming with authority: stay back. A figure stepped out from the shadows, silhouetted by the moonlight. Panic turned to dread. I realized this was no rescue. Go! I yelled to the girl, but she was already gone. The figure advanced, and everything around me felt like it was closing in. I stumbled back, heart racing, as the figure's face came into view. I wouldn't just be uncovering something tonight. I was being drawn into a nightmare I might not escape. I froze, my brain racing to make sense of the figure before me. It was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a long coat that flapped in the wind. The hat obscured most of its face, but the glint of eyes glowed with an unsettling intensity. Fear gripped me. "What do you want?" I managed to stammer, feeling like a cornered animal. "Stay quiet," it hissed, its voice a low growl. "You don't know what you're dealing with." The trees creaked ominously, and for a second, I considered running. But where? I was ringed by a darkness that felt alive. The little girl's frightened eyes were still etched in my mind. Had she escaped the same fate I now faced? "Where is she?" I blurted, the question tumbling from my lips before I could stop it. "Does it matter?" The figure sneered, stepping forward. My heart raced. "She's not your concern anymore." I weighed my options, fight or flight. The urgency of the situation tightened around my throat. I shifted back instinctively, and that's when I noticed the reflection in the figure's eyes, something shifting in the shadows behind it, watching. My gut twisted. "I'm leaving," I said, voice faltering but edged with false bravado. With that, I turned on my heel, rushing blindly through the trees. Branches slapped at me as I stumbled through the underbrush, desperate for escape. The sound of footsteps followed, heavy and deliberate. My heart sank. "Run all you want," the figure called after me, a mocking laughter echoing in my ears. "You can't escape what's hunting you." Adrenaline surged as I pushed myself harder, but the darkness was dense. I broke through the edge of the woods and found myself back at the house, but something was different. The front door was ajar, and a flickering light spilled out. I hesitated, heart racing again. Should I go in? There was a part of me that was tempted to call for help. But another part held me back. The warning in that figure's voice echoed loud and clear. Just as I was about to retreat, I heard a soft cry. It was faint, almost lost in the wind, but I recognized it. "Help me!" The girl. She was inside. Against my better judgment, I edged toward the doorway, bracing myself. I stepped inside, and the light revealed a scene that stole my breath. Pictures hung on the walls, family portraits, faded and cracked, but they weren't just normal photos. Faces were scratched out, and beneath them, scrawls of unsettling messages filled the frames. "Stay away, run. Not safe." My skin prickled. I backed out, panic clawing at my throat as I heard a creaking noise from the darkness behind me. Something was in the house. I turned to flee, but before I could make it to the door, the figure from the woods appeared, blocking my exit. Its face came into the light, and I gasped. The eyes were not just glow, they were now a deep, hollow black. And that jagged smile spoke of intentions far darker than I could comprehend. "It's time to learn the truth," it said slowly, and in that moment, my world spun away from me. The figure blocked my way, and my heart raced. I tried to move, but my legs felt frozen, as if the very air around me had thickened. That smile had twisted my stomach. "Let me go," I managed to squeak out. It stepped closer, and the flickering light cast eerie shadows across its face. "You need to see what is happening here," it said, voice smooth yet dripping with malice. I took a deep breath and steadied myself. I'd seen too much to back down now, but fear clenched around me like a vice. I glanced around the room, desperate for an escape route. But the walls felt like they were closing in. The portraits loomed, their scratched faces reflecting the chaos in my mind. Suddenly, the light flickered more violently, illuminating a dark corner I hadn't noticed. A door stood partially open, revealing a staircase spiraling down into darkness. I turned back to the figure. "What's down there?" "Truth and a choice." Its voice slithered through the air. "Do you dare to uncover the secrets you've stumbled upon?" I hesitated, the urgency of the girl's cry still pulsing in my mind. "What do you want with me? You're not going to hurt her, are you?" The figure chuckled, a sound that made my skin crawl. "Oh, she is safe for now. But you won't be if you don't choose wisely." I felt my pulse quicken. Every instinct screamed at me to run, yet my curiosity and need to save the girl kept me rooted. I took a shaky step toward the staircase, half expecting something to grab me from the shadows. Go on, it urged, gesturing with a long, bony finger. Or do you prefer to leave her to whatever is waiting for you outside? A chill ran down my spine. I didn't know what lay beneath, but standing here felt like entrapment. The walls whispered secrets in a language I couldn't comprehend. Taking a deep breath, I made my decision. I turned toward the open door, pushing through the fear clawing at my throat. I stepped cautiously onto the first stair, the wood creaking and groaning beneath my weight. The darkness swallowed me whole. I couldn't see anything, and I fumbled for the railing, heart pounding. Each step felt like a descent into oblivion. And then I heard a faint whimper echoing up from the depths. Help me. Please. My stomach dropped. It was her voice. I needed to reach her. The figure's laughter echoed behind me, a cruel reminder of my choice. Just as I braced myself to descend further, the light behind me dimmed sharply. I whipped around, panic rising in my chest. Someone's coming, I whispered, knowing something had changed. A shadow loomed in the doorway, outlined by the flickering light. I could feel it watching me, and a cold dread settled deep in my bones. The figure said nothing, but I could sense the anticipation in its stillness. Who's there? I called out, voice trembling. Then everything went dark. I stood in the darkness, my breath caught in my throat. The shadow in the doorway was now a void, swallowing any connection I had to the world above. My heart pounded. I could only focus on the faint whimper, urging me to move. I squeezed my eyes shut for a moment, trying to block out the terror. Help me. Her voice pierced through the silence again, clearer now and filled with desperation. It felt like a lifeline. Stay calm. I'm coming. I called down the staircase, forcing my feet to move. Each step felt infinitely heavier than the last as I descended into the black abyss. The air grew colder, a shiver racing down my spine. I imagined icy hands reaching out from the walls, ready to grab me and pull me into the darkness. Still, the sound of the girl's whimper pushed me forward. As I reached the bottom of the staircase, the faint light from above faded entirely. I was enveloped in shadow, and the screams of silence drummed in my ears. I strained my eyes, desperately trying to see. And then I saw it an outline in the gloom. A small figure huddled against the wall, trembling. Are you okay? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper as I stepped closer. The girl looked up, and my stomach dropped. Her eyes were wide, filled with a terror that mirrored my own. They're coming, she whispered, her voice shaking. We have to go. Now. What? Who's coming? I scanned the darkness, but all I could see was her terrified expression. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the dark space, sending chills through me. I froze, heart racing once again. From the shadows, something shifted, prowling closer. Go! She cried, breaking me from my trance. I felt her small hand grasp mine, pulling me toward what I hoped was an exit. I moved, adrenaline forcing my legs into motion. As we sprinted deeper into the unknown, the growl morphed into something more sinister, a chorus of whispers that filled the air like a thunderstorm of malevolence. What is this place? I shouted, trying to drown out the noise. No time. Just run. We turned a corner, and suddenly, light pierced the darkness, a flickering bulb hanging above a door at the end of the corridor. The girl pulled me toward it, her grip tightening. But as we reached for the handle, the whispers grew louder, drowning out everything else. I hesitated, heart pounding. The door felt so close, yet something about it felt wrong. Open it. The girl urged. But before I could turn the knob, the shadows surged forward, gathering around us like a hungry fog. I felt warmth seep from my skin, and panic seized my chest. I had to make a choice. Let go. I shouted, yanking my hand away just as a cold grasp tried to latch onto me. I lunged for the door, twisting the handle. The door swung open, revealing a blinding light. I stepped through, pulling the girl with me, but just as I did, I felt something clutch my ankle. That's when I screamed. I stumbled into the blinding light, the sudden brightness overwhelming my senses. I felt the girl pull me further inside, her grip firm. As the door slammed shut behind us, the whispers faded but not the echo of that growl. "Where are we?" I asked, panting and trying to catch my breath. The room was small, cluttered with old furniture and stacks of dusty books. A single window cast a weak glow, revealing walls lined with strange symbols I didn't recognize. "I don't know," the girl replied, her voice shaking. "But we can't stay long. They'll find us." "Who are they?" I pressed, searching her terrified eyes for answers. Before she could respond, the ground began to tremble beneath us, and I could hear faint scratching noises coming from the other side of the door. I darted toward it, pressing my ear against the wood. The growl returned, louder and more menacing. Panic set in. "Get back!" I yelled, pulling her away just as the door rattled violently, making the frame creak. "What is happening?" "They're trying to get in," she screamed. We moved to the old window, and I glanced outside. A twisted landscape spread before me, dark shadows weaving between the trees, black figures shifting like smoke. I felt the urge to bolt back to the door. "We can't just stay here." The girl grabbed my arm, pulling me away from the window. "No. If we go outside, we'll be lost. We need to find another way out." I nodded, thoughts racing. "What do you suggest?" She scanned the room, her eyes settling on a door at the far end. "That door looks like it leads to another part of the house. We can try it." I followed her to the door, my heart pounding. Before I could reach for the handle, the scratching intensified, punctuated by horrid whispers just beyond the door. I hesitated, my fingers hovering above the doorknob. "Open it," she urged. I hesitated again, fear knotting in my stomach. What if opening it meant letting in whatever was waiting on the other side? But the other option was worse, staying here, trapped. With a deep breath, I twisted the handle. The door creaked open, revealing another dark hallway. An odd chill crept out, wrapping around me like a cold blanket. "It's the only choice," I muttered, stepping into the gloom. The air grew thick as we moved down the hall, the whispers morphing into indistinct murmurs, seeping into my mind. I glanced back at the girl, whose expression of dread mirrored my own. Then everything went dark. The lights overhead flickered before plunging us into pitch blackness. I fumbled blindly, trying to find her, panic rising again. "Say something," I called out, my voice trembling. "I'm here," she replied, but her tone was different now, almost as if she was also fading. I reached for her, but my hand met empty air. "Don't leave me," I yelled, spinning in circles, my heart racing. That's when I heard it, a soft laughter, low and mocking. Somewhere in the darkness, we were not alone. The laughter echoed around me, sending chills down my spine. It bounced off the walls, taunting, as if the darkness itself was alive and playing games with us. "What's going on?" I shouted, my voice sounding small and helpless. "I don't know," she cried back, her panic rising alongside mine. "Just keep moving." I stumbled forward, using my hands to feel the wall. Each step felt unsteady, like the ground beneath me was alive. The murmurs seemed to swirl around, closer now, wrapping themselves around my thoughts. Then a sudden gust of cold air swept through the hallway, and for a moment, I caught a faint whiff of something rotten, decay, maybe, or something worse. I gagged but pushed forward. "We had to get out of this place." "I can't see," I said, pushing against the wall until I felt a doorframe. I pressed my hand against it, willing it to be another way out. "Is there a way out? Can you feel anything?" "Maybe," the girl said, her breath shaky. "There is something here, something heavy. Just help me find a door," I yelled, desperation creeping into my voice. Suddenly, the light sputtered back to life. I squinted against the brightness, confusion filling the air. The hallway stretched out before us, dull and gray, lined with doors that looked as old as the house itself. But what struck me was the figure standing at the end of the corridor. A shadowy silhouette limped toward us, the laughter now replaced by a low hum that vibrated through the floor. Who are you? I shouted, instinctively pulling the girl closer. The figure stopped, and its head tilted, revealing a pair of piercing eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. You shouldn't be here, it rasped, each word like cold steel slicing through the air. Neither should you. I retorted, trying to sound brave but feeling the opposite. In response, it took a slow step forward, revealing a face warped and twisted, like a mask of agony. I felt the girl stiffen beside me. We need to go. Now. I turned, yanking her arm as the figure's laughter erupted again, a sound that resonated in the very depths of my mind. It sent us stumbling backward, but I forced myself to keep my feet moving. Over here. I shouted, spotting an open doorway just off the side. It didn't matter where it led, it was better than facing that thing. I sprinted towards the door, dragging her with me. As we dove through the doorway, I slammed it shut behind us, leaning against it as I tried to catch my breath. But all I could hear was that relentless laughing echoing through the walls. What was that? The girl gasped, her wide eyes searching mine. I wish I knew, I whispered back. My heart raced wildly. Then I noticed a faint glimmer at my feet, something metallic peeking out from the shadows. I knelt down, brushing aside the dirt. That's when I saw it, a small key etched with the same strange symbols that lined the walls. Suddenly, I didn't just feel like I was running away. It hit me then. We were part of something. A game, a trap. I just didn't know whose, and I had a feeling this key was just the beginning. The key felt cool in my palm, oddly reassuring amid the chaos. I held it up, the dim light revealing the symbols engraved on its surface. Do you think this unlocks something? I asked, glancing at the girl. Her brow was furrowed, fear still evident in her eyes. Maybe, she replied, her breath steadying. But we need to move. We don't know if that thing will follow us in here. I nodded, the urgency of her words settling over me like a weight. We couldn't linger. I slid the key into my pocket and glanced around the room we found ourselves in. It was a small supply closet, dark and cramped, filled with dust-covered shelves and long-forgotten tools. Where do we go next? I wondered aloud. The thought of going back into that hallway made my skin crawl. Let us look for another door, she suggested, glancing toward the far wall. There must be another way out. I stepped cautiously away from the door, moving toward the shelves. My fingers brushed against cold metal tools, and I picked up a rusty flashlight. I clicked the switch, and a weak beam flickered to life. Better than nothing, I muttered. Okay, now we can see, she said, watching the light as it danced across the walls. As we moved deeper into the closet, something caught my attention. Another door, smaller and unmarked, stood slightly ajar at the back, shrouded in shadows. Check this out, I whispered, pointing the flashlight in its direction. The girl's eyes widened. I don't like it, she said, fidgeting with her hands. What if it's a trap? Or a way out, I countered, my curiosity pulling me towards it. We had to take the chance. I pushed the door open wider, and it creaked in protest. The smell hit us first, a sickly sweet scent that reminded me of the decay I had caught a whiff of earlier. I grimaced but stepped through the threshold, the light leading the way. The room beyond was different. It was a small, dark chamber, its walls lined with shelves brimming with strange objects and dusty jars filled with murky liquids. A table sat in the center, cluttered with odd trinkets that seemed almost alive in the faint light. What is this place? The girl murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, I admitted, scanning the room. Then I saw something. A large, faded map tacked to one wall, covered in more of those symbols. It looked ancient, the edges frayed, and I could feel a pulsing energy radiating from it, as if it held secrets we were not meant to uncover. That map, maybe it shows us where we are? I suggested, taking a step closer. My heart raced despite my instinct to turn back. Or traps, she warned. There was a tremor in her voice. I reached out, tracing the lines of the map. There were markings in different colors, and one in particular caught my attention. It glowed faintly under the light. That's where we are now, I said, pointing. But look, there's another spot marked nearby. Do you think it connects to the key? Let us find out, she said, the fear in her eyes mixing with determination. Just then, a loud crash echoed behind us, followed by that chilling laugh. I spun around, adrenaline spiking again. We had to hurry. Before I could think twice, I grabbed the flashlight tighter and said, "Let us go. We don't have much time." As we dove back into the surrounding darkness, the map tugged at my thoughts, whispering secrets that felt just out of reach. I glanced back just once as the shadows seemed to close in around us. Whatever game we were playing, I knew it was far from over. I stumbled into the darkroom, the flashlight beam cutting through the dimness like a lifeline as the echoes of that mocking laughter faded into the shadows. The weight of the map and the key sat heavily in my pocket, reminders that we were in something deeper than either of us could grasp. I felt the girl nestled close beside me, her small frame trembling, reflecting the dread curling in my stomach. "We have to find a way out," I urged, more to myself than to her, my thoughts scattered. The laughter still replayed in my mind, a constant reminder that danger lurked just beyond our view. The space was cramped, filled with strange, grimy artifacts in jars that seemed to pulsate with unidentifiable contents. It was a grotesque collection, a macabre museum of a reality I wanted no part of. I felt the girl beside me draw in a shaky breath. "What do we do? Let us see if there is another door or a way out of here." I moved deeper into the room, my heart logging each sound the girl was breathing, the faint rustle of something behind me. I scanned every corner with the flashlight. The dim light resulted in a waltz of shadows that almost felt alive. "Wait!" she whispered suddenly, her wide eyes fixed on something behind me. I turned slowly, the flashlight beam shaking as it flickered across the shelves. There was a door, hidden behind a mound of tattered cloths and dusty boxes, partially ajar. Without waiting for a second thought, I rushed toward it, tugging the girl along. "This way!" I exclaimed. The door creaked open, revealing the promise of an escape. Just as we crossed the threshold, the air shifted cold and heavy, like a dense fog rolling in. I pushed the door shut behind us, the sound echoing like a thunderclap in the silence. "Where are we?" she asked, peering around. We found ourselves in a narrow corridor lit by sporadic bulbs casting an eerie glow. Walls shifted, revealing worn wallpaper patterned with haunting images that seemed to watch us as we ventured. "I have no idea," I admitted, our footsteps muffled against a warped wooden floor. The shadows pressed in, relentless. But that haunting laughter still lingered at the fringes. Was it a promise of pursuit or merely a fading memory? Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath us, and a deafening crash erupted from the far end of the hall. My pulse quickened. "We have to keep moving," I urged, pushing forward. "Come on." At the end of the corridor, I spotted a heavy iron door, its surface rusted and mottled. If we could just get through, but something wasn't right. The air thickened around us, laden with an ominous weight. "Do you hear that?" the girl's voice quavered. The whispers returned, swirling around us, seeping through the cracks in the walls, creeping into my mind. They were insistent, frantic, each one punctuated by the growl of something waiting just beyond our sight. "Focus," I said, forcing my breath to steady. I wrenched on the door handle. It rattled in protest but gave way, swinging open with a rusted screech. "Let us go," I urged, and we dashed through the threshold. The room beyond was vast, echoing with a sense of desolation. Remnants of a forgotten world lay scattered everywhere, torn furniture, broken mirrors, and dust-laden relics that spoke of forgotten lives. "Do you think we're safe?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. I scanned the room. "I don't know. But we can't stop now." In the center stood a pedestal, enshrined in a halo of flickering light. On it lay an ancient tome, its surface covered in runes that glowed faintly. "What is that?" the girl murmured, eyes wide as she stepped closer, drawn to its pull. "Don't touch it." The urgency burned in my chest. I approached cautiously, the air humming with energy. My heart raced. Whatever lay within that book could hold the answers or unleash even greater horrors. Then, from somewhere in the deep shadows, I heard a familiar voice, gentle yet haunting. "Help me." The plea wrapped around me, choking out my sense of self. "No," I whispered. "Not again." Before I could think, the shadows coalesced, forming into the same figure we'd. encountered before. That laughter returned, wrapping around me like a binding cord. You took too long, it crooned. Now, you must choose. My stomach dropped. What do you want? I demanded, my strength waning. To my surprise, the figure leaned closer, its eyes locking onto mine. You have something I desire. It pointed with a skeletal finger at the key in my pocket. No, I choked out as panic exploded within me. Suddenly, the room trembled, and the air grew colder. The whispers crescendoed, filling my mind, overwhelming my senses. It's your choice or hers, the figure sneered, voice dripping with malice. I faltered, caught between the girl and the haunting figure, the weight of the world pressing down. Your time is running out, it hissed, shadows leaping forward, brushing against my skin, trying to tether me to the ground. In that moment, I knew if I didn't make a choice, we might both be lost forever. Listen to me. I yelled into the swirling darkness. I won. Give you the key. Then you will lose everything, the figure responded, its gaze mocking. In that fraught moment, monstrous images of shadows became clear, revealing what lay beyond, a world unraveling into chaos, threatening to consume everything. I felt the girl's presence beside me, her fear mingling with my own, anchoring me to bravery. No, I said more resolutely, clutching the key in my pocket. I choose to fight. Before it could react, I turned not away, but toward the boy, fire igniting in my chest. I knew we had to move and place our trust in the bond we forged. We'll make it, I said, reaching for her hand. We pushed through the shadows, breaking the bonds of fear, the figure's laughter fading into the void. Emerging from that darkness, I felt a rush of cool air, the embrace of a new dawn pouring through the cracks. But in the distance, the echoes of that haunting laughter still hung heavy in the air, a lingering reminder that whatever terror we fled was still lurking nearby, ready to strike. And sometimes, I think about that night on Route 66, questioning the truth of what I encountered. The shadows cling to me, but now I understand there are paths left unexplored, realities coexisting, like the thin veil draping our world. I still wonder what it all meant, but part of me knows, some mysteries are best left unwritten.